Hello and welcome back to Graph Woodshop. Today we're talking about shop organization. And I've got this dirty little secret, and it is my sandpaper storage. I just have this old drawer taken out of some cabinets, and basically all my sandpaper ends up in here. So that's what we're going to be working on today. We're going to be building a sandpaper storage organizer. I'm not the only one actually building the same project today. Jake with Jake is actually building one as well. And we're having a little competition to see who makes a better one. So what I want everybody to do is watch my video, then go over to his channel, watch his. I'll put a link down in the description below. And then once you've watched both of them, why don't you leave a comment on either one of our videos, or maybe both, and let us know whose sandpaper organizer you think is better. I actually have a little surprise for today. I'm actually going to be making two sandpaper organizers, one for my Orbital sander and one for my belt sander as well. So maybe that'll get you guys to comment down below and say that you think mine's better, but we shall see. So let's get this mess of sandpaper all organized and cleaned up, and let's get after it.
So the first thing I'm doing is getting my table saw all set up. I'm setting my fence to 20 inches, checking the front and the back to make sure they're both square because this Ryobi table saw fence can be a little bit squirrely sometimes. I'm then taking this scrap piece of 3/4 inch plywood and cutting it into a 20-inch square for us to use today. After I've got that, I'm going to then go down and lower my blade to 3/8 of an inch because I'm going to be cutting dados. To cut these dados, I am just going to be using my regular table saw blade instead of a dado stack. I'm just going to cut once through, then scoot my fence over the width of my blade and go through a second time. Doing this makes it thick enough for my little shelves that I'm going to be putting in each of these dados. I ended up putting 7 shelves, so 7 different dados I had to cut here every 2 inches. If you're making one of these, just put however many shelves you're going to need for the different grits of sandpaper that you have. I left a couple extra just in case I do want to expand into the future, but let's get after it. Let's keep seeing what we got. So now I'm going to be cutting the 2 side pieces out of this. My 2 side pieces are both going to be approximately 9 inches wide, and then my back piece is going to be approximately 7 inches wide. So I'm cutting each of those strips out of here, and it's going to leave me with a little leftover waste, but not a lot here. As you're going to see all day long today, I am fighting this glue bottle. The end of it just got clogged up and is not working with me. But yeah, that gets pretty frustrating towards the end. But anyways, I'm just adding a little bit of glue to both of my sides here, and then I'm going to use a couple of brad nails to just clamp it in place while we're waiting on that glue to dry. If you're doing this on your own, I suggest sanding before you get everything glued together. I was just kind of in a hurry this day and not thinking about sanding while I'm making this sanding organizer. I cut each of these little shelves out of some 1/4 inch plywood that I had laying around. They slide in real nice and easily. And then I also have a piece that I'm going to glue and brad nail onto the bottom. If you have any suggestions for a glue bottle that doesn't get clogged up, go ahead and leave me a comment down with your favorite suggestions for a good glue bottle. But getting this thing all tacked in place with the brad nailer just so it'll hold, and then I'll take my router and just a quick little flush trim bit to clean this all up nice and neatly. And just like that, except for a little bit of finishing, this Orbital Sandpaper organizer is all finished up. And here's my basic plan for this belt sander organizer. I'm really wanting to have a holder for the belt sander itself so that I can use it while it's mounted on the wall. I've got a few pieces of 3/4 inch plywood that I've cut to just the same size as my sander. Your size is going to be different depending on whatever sander you are using. But once again, fighting this glue bottle. And it's about this point that I'm just about to give up and squirt it straight out of the top. But let's give it a little bit more of a try first. But nope, the lid's coming off, and we're just going to pour it straight out of the bottle and use our finger to smear everything out. At this point, I am needing some sort of spacer to really hold this belt sander into its little organizer. Keep taking this thing over to the table saw, setting the bevel on it, and then adjusting. And this is just a lot of trial and error to really get this thing to fit in here. But slowly and surely, I'm going to get something that fits in there nice and neatly after quite a bit of trial and error and trimming things off. When we finally got this thing to fit in here, this is really just for the belt sander to sit up on so that the belt sander isn't basically sanding out the bottom of its little organizational stand that it's going to be sitting. So I get this thing all in here and I realize it's still not quite tall enough. So I end up adding just another little piece of wood in there with it as well after we get it all glued in place, just to give it that height it needs so that it's not actually sanding out the bottom of the stand that it's sitting in. now I'm needing a good way to hold this thing basically back so that it doesn't tilt down, as you see here. At this point I go to my bin of old hardware and start digging around. And what I finally end up using I thought was pretty fitting. It was actually the same hinge that was originally part of the cabinets that I took this 3/4 inch plywood from. So I ended up marking my holes and drilling some screws in to put this hinge in place, and it ends up being just a nice and simple little way to solve the problem of holding this thing in place. And now I'm going to add some dowels to really hold some sandpaper on each side. Attaching these dowels was probably the hardest part of this whole project. I did pre-drill a couple of holes that I had marked on each side, and then I'm going to be using this right angle attachment to get into this tight place. If anybody has any suggestions on a better way of doing this, I am all ears, because this didn't work out so great. Really, everything between holding the screw, holding the drill, and holding the dowel in place was more things to hold than I had hands. But by the fourth one, really got it all figured out. This first one here did not go to plan, as you can see, but I finally ended up getting some of these clamps out to help hold the dowel in place, and that really made everything go quicker. Sticking with the whole idea of really using reclaimed material for everything in the shop, I did end up taking these dowels from an old broom handle that I had laying around that was broken. So it's always a use for something if you hang on to them. I did end up sanding this and coating it with some shellac. This is really what I like to use for my shop projects. I just think it turns out nice, and shellac always smells great too, so you get that added benefit as well. But give this a little bit of a quick sanding and a quick coat of shellac before I got it hung up on the wall.
Alright, so everything is done and finished up now. I'm really happy with the way both of these turned out. I do wish I had sanded everything before I had assembled it. That would have made it way easier. Kind of went a little lax on sanding the sandpaper organizer, so it is what it is. But these are just shop organization storage, so they don't have to look awesome. I always just like to use whatever leftover material I have laying around when I'm working in the shop. That way I got more money to spend on tools. So now that you've watched my video all the way through, go back to Jake's channel, watch his also, and then leave us each a comment down and let us know who do you think had the better sandpaper organizer, Josh or Jake? So thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll look forward to your comments. See you guys next time. Goodbye.